everybody. It is another episode of the Fantasy Flyer. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to being absolute homies. What's up, dog? Hey, Taylor. How you doing?
What is good?
We back.
Yet another episode. It's good to be here.
That's right. It's always good. Episode 39. Rolling through them. Rolling through them. We're going to be at episode 50 before we know it. We actually have up until episode 47, I believe, in the calendar. So, and I think that even might be light. I don't think I counted the last three that I added. So we might even be up to the big half a century mark, which is it's a good little healthy amount of shows we did every year. Let's see if I did my math is correct. It's about 95 hours worth of recording,
Hot
and
damn.
that's not even including our pre-shows.
Right.
That's not even including. So we're probably well over 100 hours by the time we're all said and done. It's almost a full-time job.
Yeah.
Uh, but this is the episode 39. As I said, welcome back to the channel. Like the video, share the video, go to Facebook, like our page, follow us on Apple Music. I've been requested by about 4 or 5 different people over the last 7 days randomly to get us on Spotify. That will be coming probably going into next year. I am chickadee chit chatting with them, so to speak. Maybe, hopefully, in time.
Yeah, we got to figure out how we're gonna host a RSS page or whatever. That's how Spotify does it.
Yep. Yeah, that's about it. But that'll be down the road. We're gonna work on that in the off season. Not gonna worry about it as we hit basically the Super Bowl. Speaking of the Super Bowl, this episode will consist of a conference game review. We're going to review both lightly. It's been about 4 days. If you're paying attention to football to this point, you don't need us to tell you what happened. But we'll kind of chit chat, throw some thoughts about the Eagles 49ers and the Bengals Chiefs game that has set up Super Bowl. I don't even know what number we're on anymore. It was like 59, 76, 84, 113, hut hike. I really don't know. I really don't know what number it is at this point. I'm not even kidding. It sounds really bad for someone who hosts a football podcast, but I'll just be a numpty. That's the only thing.
I forget my Roman numerals. LV1. What is that? 61?
V I thought was 50. The L before it, is that 10? Why can't they just number it like if I just Google Super Bowl 2023, it's going to tell me LV. This is LV2.
Well, that's because it's
So you done 2023.
God damn it. It's the 2022 season though. Son of a bitch.
You done
son
you
of a
done
bleep.
Fool. You ruined it. You ruined it. It's okay. We've been pretty clean most of the year at this point if you're still hanging on. Super Bowl. They literally just calling it the Super Bowl 2023. And that even everybody else gave up on the Roman numerals. They were literally like, no, that's about it for me. What's Wikipedia say?
Yeah, here we go.
Always going to the good old fashioned Wikipedia.
L is 50 and V is 5. Okay, so it's 56.
57. Well,
57.
57. All right. Super Bowl 57. I'll just call it the 2023 Super Bowl. That's what we're going to leave it as. Anyway, so we will go, we'll give us some thoughts on those. And then we're going to have our first of the 2 focus shows. We'll go a little bit more in depth with those when we get to the focus portion of the show. But I figure we'll start off with both of those reviews. We'll start off the Eagles and the 49ers. I think the Eagles have had the easiest postseason that I can remember. They had a bye on week 1. They faced a very, very bad Giants team that were ill prepared in the divisional round. Mm-hmm. And then the championship round, they faced a 49ers team that, albeit lost their quarterback, and when they had to use him again, it was literally by force. But the 2 opposing teams to the Eagles have scored a grand total of 14 points.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks.
Definitely. Whopping. This most recent game was pretty disappointing, just mainly from not being able to see Purdy play the whole game perspective.
And you won't see him play next year either because he has to have Tommy John surgery as it came out today. So he is gone for 2023 season, almost at 24. Super Bowl's got me messed up. But yeah, he tore his UCL, ulterior collateral ligament.
Something like that. Yes. Definitely
I,
ulterior. That's
I
all I
went
remember.
to I went to medicinal school. Um, yeah. So the UCL, he tore that in the first end of the first. I don't think he
Yeah.
made it. If he made it into the second, he didn't go far. And they had to go to fourth string quarterback Josh Johnson.
Mm.
I was very, very confident that they would just throw Robbie Gould out there to start throwing footballs once Josh Johnson started to have a few rocky drives. But they couldn't without. I mean, Purdy wasn't slicing up the defense by any means, and Josh Johnson did not do any better at all.
He was significantly worse.
Yeah, and then to make matters worse on San Francisco, Philadelphia ran in, around, on, and through them. Um, Everybody ran the ball, but not like miles long. Like they didn't, Miles Sanders led the team, I think, with 40, I want to say 8 rush yards. I have it up in the other window. I don't know why I'm guessing. 42. Actually, Kenny Gainwell did it 48. Excuse me. Miles Sanders had 42. So Jalen Hurts had 39. Boston Scott had 21. 4 rushing touchdowns. All 4 touchdowns came on the ground. Devontae Smith had 36 yards in the air. AJ Brown had 28 in the air. Gainwell had 26 in the air. Goddard had 23 in the air. There was no throwing offense, really. It was all run. Run, 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 run. And because the offense for San Francisco couldn't get it going, there was no problems with it if it failed. There's no urgency to switch the game plan. We're up by, by the time San Francisco scored, they were up 21 to 7. Keep running it. They have to score again before we worry. And they never did. Josh Johnson was 7 for 13 with 74 yards. Brock Purdy was 4 for 4. And 2 of those, I think, were with a torn UCL. So that's nice.
Yeah.
23 yards. Christian McCaffrey, 84 yards on the ground with 15 carries. He did have the lone touchdown for San Francisco.
And he also had a pass attempt.
He did. I
I don't
watched
remember
that. I do. He was actually really smart. He played like they should have let him play quarterback out of the Wildcat. It was, I mean, I'm basing that off of one snap, but he took a snap out of the Wildcat and he moved right. And I think he was either supposed to throw it back and it didn't work, or he was just moving around outside the pocket. And I don't know who he was looking for on the deep side of the field, but he couldn't find him. So he ended up back in the middle of the field, avoiding tackles, obviously avoiding the sack. And he was going to rush it up the middle, which had a couple of holes in it. It filled up kind of quickly. And his instinct just said, throw it to where no one is. And he did. And he threw it like 40 yards. He threw it like ways. And nobody was there. It was like he threw it away for all intents and purposes. But I'm like, why? If he can throw anything decent, I know you don't want to have him take sacks. I know you don't want any of that crap. I get it. You probably, I mean, if he gets hurt and you lose, I mean, at least he gets hurt and there's an off season ahead because now you have an off season and he's not hurt. But I get where you want to keep the team quarterback centered, and if you do win with him and you get hurt, then you got a problem going into the Super Bowl. So, didn't work out that way. Only, I mean, Debo had 3 catches for 33. George Kittle 3 catches for 32. Christian McCaffrey 4 for 22. Ayuk 1 catch on 1 target for 10 yards. 97 receiving yards total. The 49ers just got hit with the injury bug, and because the defense had there's no momentum their way. This was get to the other side of the 60 minutes at some point. So we'll chat about the 49ers when it comes to our Magic 8-Ball series, which will come in a few weeks. Chatting about their offseason. They have a deep list of offseason names that are free agents. They just lost their I can't think defensive coordinator to the Texans. D'Amico Ryans is the new Texans. It's head coach, right? Am I imagining that?
I didn't think that they had hired a head coach yet, but maybe I'm wrong.
Oh yeah, they did. Yep, I'm pretty sure it's D'Amico Ryan's head coach because he played for the Texans for like several years, 6 years. He was
Yep, you're
defensive
you're
worker.
right.
Okay. So with that being officially established, we can definitely tune one of these up for you here. If it ever turns up. I don't know. Maybe it won't work again. Who
The
knows?
Gerbs. There
Yeah,
you go.
thank you. Thank you for that one because it didn't work the way I wanted it to. So it's still not gonna work. It's all right. We'll just is this Bluetooth to something? It is. Yeah, there it is. I had the Bluetooth connected to something. So I probably honestly that was probably my girlfriend's speaker, which is in the bedroom. And I think
She's
I've
like, what
randomly
is happening?
in the middle of doing whatever she's doing and just go take Dicker James.
I've
Um
definitely done that to my wife while she's in the middle of a meeting. I turn on these Bluetooth headphones and I'm like now listening to her meeting and I'm like, oh crap. So I like turn them off immediately and she's back in her meeting or whatever, but good old Bluetooth.
That's right. Technology comes and technology goes. Um, Also, while we're on the topic of head coaches, the Saints traded head coach Sean Payton to the Broncos. Never thought I'd say that one. The 29th overall pick in this upcoming draft, a second round pick next year, and they get a 2023 third round and Sean Payton. I believe I have that correct. So Sean Payton he goes to the Broncos with a first round pick, which is also, I mean, or no, he goes to the Broncos for a first round pick. Excuse me. I don't understand where the Broncos necessarily want to trade that pick for a head coach, but yeah, I guess nobody. I know D'Amico Ryan's turned down the Broncos not once but twice. So yeah, they wanted D'Amico, and then they were like, "Yeah, let's look at some other options." And they interviewed Peyton, and I think someone else. I forgot who. And they came back to D'Amico, and they were like, "So you're our choice." And he was like, "Ha! I would rather go rebuild the Texans entirely." So, which we'll chat about shortly. Moving on to game two, uh, Kansas City and Cincinnati, and this is the story of a team getting a monkey off its back. That is really the 4-1-1 about this one. Kansas City's defense was stellar to start this game. I don't know if you I'm sure if you're a Cincinnati fan, you tried to forget that they sacked Joe Burrow on 3 straight dropbacks. I think they sacked him 5 times total in the first half.
At
Really?
least 4, yeah.
Yeah. They attacked Burrow just more in depth. I had a feeling that I didn't have confidence enough to say it, so shame on me. But there's no right guard or right tackle for this team. There really isn't. Like the problem with them the first 4 weeks of the year was their offensive line was basically like a turnstile at a subway. And just kind of and walk through. And they got that fixed. And you could see it. The record shows. And they were monsters, even against Buffalo last weekend. And this time, the Kansas City dialed it up to start the game. It worked. Offense for Kansas City was a little slow itself to get going. Wasn't as slow as the Bengals. Had the lead for most of the game. You saw Marquez Valdez Scantling. Marquez is Spanish for Mark. He got super involved. I think he had 5 for 91 and a touchdown. Again, don't know why I'm guessing. I have it up in the other window.
6 for
Six
116.
for 116. He had one more catch after I was gone, I guess. Travis Kelce, 7 for 78. Both of them had touchdowns. Isaiah Pacheco, 5 catches, 59 yards. Jerick McKinnon, 2 catches, 17 yards. He only carried the ball 4 times. Pacheco carried it 10 times. With Jerick McKinnon, I believe he is a free agent. I should check my cheat sheet again. I don't know why I'm guessing because it is on my other sheet. Imagine that. Yes, Jerick McKinnon is an impending free agent. I don't see them bringing him back. I just don't. Just saying. But Kansas City they were Kansas City. 29 for 43 was Mahomes, 2 touchdowns, 326 yards. He had a scramble that eventually got a unnecessary roughness penalty, which was
Mm.
probably I don't know, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll call that like a -36 on the brain scale. Wasn't a great penalty. And yet I still managed to feel really bad for Joseph Asai because he was really crying on the sideline after he caused the penalty because it put the Chiefs right in kicking position at the end of the fourth, as it was a tie football game. And so
Yeah.
and he's a young man. He's gonna bounce back. I think he's 24 years old, 23 years old. He'll be back. It's something that happens, but as a team that is looking to repeat Super Bowl appearances, that hurts. That hurts.
Yeah, you hate to see a game almost, I won't say be decided by something like that, but it definitely tipped
That
it.
is my least favorite thing to do.
It tipped it a little bit towards Kansas City's favor, but I don't know. I don't see how you don't make the call, because if you get laxed on those things, then you're kind of making a statement that in certain situations, like a playoff game, maybe we'll be a little more laxed about it because we don't want that to be a deciding factor. I don't know. I see both sides.
It was called. It was the right call
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
to you know what I mean. That was just a bet, but I don't know if it was lack of
That is my
experience.
least favorite
I
thing to
just hit
do.
the same damn button again. Um, but it's not something that you want to see by any
Right.
means. So, not good for them.
Yeah. No, at that point I thought the Bengals, I mean, they had the momentum swing. They started to look a lot better. And yeah, I thought that they might come back and win it. I mean, honestly, there was that long ball that Burrow threw, maybe the previous drive to that one, that was intercepted, right? Off like a bobble, like Higgins tried to catch it. It was into double coverage. Higgins
I
tried to catch it and it bobbled, and the other guy on, I forget who, but Kansas City intercepted it.
I didn't see. So I was not the most of the second half. I missed up
Hmm.
until the final drive. So I did not get to see that interception. It would appear. Oh no, I don't know. Jalen Watson had one that was picked off. Josh
Okay,
Williams had one as well.
Williams. Okay, yeah, it was the Williams one.
Watson had an interception that was just a forced ball that should. I
Yeah.
remember seeing that one, um, but I didn't see the Williams one. All in all, I mean, you saw what happened with Buffalo in the run game with Joe Mixon. They let Joe Mixon do whatever he wanted. Kansas City did not. I thought they would. It was not the case.
Mm.
He had 8 carries for 19 yards. P. Ryan had 22 yards. Joe Burrow was the leading rusher. So
Yeah, he actually had one design play right up the gut. Worked very well. But yeah, anyways, the point being on that interception was that they had an opportunity there. They were driving down the field, and I don't know why. I mean, Higgins is a big guy. He does make plays like that, but it just seemed like another forced throw that wasn't necessary, and it kind of threw things in the other direction after they had built some momentum.
yeah, that was not good. Um, Cincinnati again. We'll talk about them when we get to the what's the words I'm looking for again? The Magic 8 Ball series. Thank you. Yeah. It's hard to screw up the words when you can't think of them, and then it just sounds like dead airspace. It's not cool.
Real quick,
Mhm.
I forget, this must have been in the second, so you probably didn't see this, but there was a design play where they threw the ball to Kelsey and he immediately went to lateral it to
I
McKinnon.
did actually.
Okay. That could have
And he
been really
ended up.
cool, but it was bobbled. But if that had worked out, McKinnon had a huge lane.
That's why
It's
not use it
it's
if
an
it's there.
interesting design play, but that was cool.
Yeah. Good for the Chiefs. So it is Chiefs and Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl, apparently 57 in Arizona. We will do the Super Bowl preview show next week, probably be out on Thursday and or Friday. There's no and, so it's Thursday or. There's only one show. But that covers the review portion. All we really need to talk about, get the notes across. My prediction for the Super Bowl is Eagles by 4. So Eagles have been the best team all year.
Yeah. I mean, Mahomes is going to do Mahomes things. Hopefully, he'll make it a pretty good game. But the
I do
Eagles
too.
are just very, very well rounded. Unless anything catastrophic happens, yeah, I don't see how they don't win.
This is going to be a tough match for the Chiefs in this one because the Eagles have scored in their last 3 games since Hurts came back, being the 2 playoff games. And it's my dog. Don't worry. He's really thirsty apparently. Do go on, Ridge. His name is Ridge. Anyway, this is going to be tough for them because in the last 3 games, the Eagles have scored what 31, 37, 31, 38. It's empty. I've never had more of an in like it's empty. Like sorry, dude. He drank a whole gallon of water. Anyway, I haven't had any chance to see how anyone would react to a Philadelphia Eagles team that is bad because they haven't been over the last 3 weeks. 31, 37, and 30. I want to say 32 points. They scored a lot, I think, in week 18, I believe. I don't
18 was 22 points.
22 points, you say? Why did I say?
Yeah.
Oh, 32, 22. I just screwed up the numbers. Anyway, yeah, all in all, it's okay. They're going to be pretty good. I think the Chiefs are going to have to keep their defense up, and they're going to have to play like I'd say 30-point offense.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, what we saw from the defense in this previous game does bode well, obviously. And I mean, Mahomes, like I said, does Mahomes things, and he can make it happen with the scrappiest of. I mean, I don't want to knock the players on the team, but like beyond Travis Kelce, what other big names do they have? And he's making it work perfectly fine.
And everybody thought that would be the problem after Tyreek Hill left. What a surprise.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to the AFC focus portion of the show. AFC focus. I don't know. Yeah, it's like my own little tune that I'll do a little jingle. See what Fridays is with the NFC focus show. But these are the theme, I guess, of these 2 episodes. The AFC focus show. We're going to center our eyes to the offseason for this week, take a break from the postseason and playoff football, start to break down the teams that have the most to gain. Now, this is mostly a fantasy-based show. Later this spring, you can stay tuned for the entire rebuild section. That is the Magic 8 Balls series that we will do, which is going to be anywhere between 2 and 4 episodes. We have not decided yet. But we will do an entire breakdown, mostly of a fantasy base in this sense right now. We'll take a look at impending free agents for the AFC teams who did not make the playoffs, and maybe 1 or 2 that did. That's a lie because we're not going to do any of the teams. None of these teams made the playoffs. So sorry. But we're going to see where they can improve. So impending free agents, break down some of their cap, and kind of go out and see how this is the beginning of thinking about these teams getting into contention. But it's also a fantasy-based segment because these are teams that in a lot of different aspects were not appealing in a fantasy sense. So this is the AFC show. We will go through most of the teams like in the top 17, the draft order, which I will tell you the draft order momentarily. The NFC show will be posted on Monday. So this one is probably going to go out. I'll say Thursday. It could be Friday. Depends on how editing goes. And then on Monday, we will have the NFC show, which will premiere as well. But you want to check that discussion out as well. Stay on the channel. So we'll jump into it head first. I'm going to go through the draft order real quick, just to remind the folks at home. From 1 to 17, which are all the teams that did not make the playoffs, with the exception of the Eagles, because they have a trade. Bears at 1, Texans at 2, Cardinals 3, Colts 4, Seahawks 5 from the Russell Wilson trade, Lions at 6 from the Matthew Stafford trade, Raiders 7, Falcons 8, Panthers 9, the Eagles come in at 10 from the Chauncey Gardner trade. I'm probably wrong with that.
I don't remember.
11 is the Titans, 12 Texans again from the Deshaun Watson trade, 13 Jets, 14 Patriots, 15 Packers, 16 Commanders, 17 Steelers. Out of those teams, the Texans, Colts, Raiders, Titans, Jets, Patriots, and Steelers are AFC teams. We will be chatting about them. So we're going to start off with the Houston Texans because why not? They should have this. They should have the first pick in the draft, but they decided to win at a bad time, or maybe a good time. Yeah, pride. Lovey Smith. Go Lovey Smith. It's only fitting that during this we're going to be Bob the Builder. All right. Because that's what this team needs to do. They got to start from a lot of different positions.
The answer is no, they cannot fix it. At least
Not
this year.
not in 1 year.
Yeah.
1 year would be a little tough. But I think they can take some serious steps forward. Houston had very little going for them from week 1 this year. The obvious fix for this team is the anchor on the offense. That's that QB position. We know that. They are angry. They are angsty. They want a QB. They will get one at pick 2. No matter what happens with pick 1. It just may not be Bryce Young. It may be CJ Stroud or Will Levis. The Davis Mills experiment ran its course. That offense drags its feet everywhere. The best thing for this offense was the draft steal that was Dameon Pierce. And he took the RB1 in preseason. And I think that's not going to be a concern going forward. He didn't finish the year. Anything after about week 9 or 10, he was not great. He did spend the last 3 or 4 weeks on the IR, which also obviously hampered production. But let's talk about some of these QB options. You want to say Bryce Young is going to be their option at 2. I don't see any reason they should trade away from that position. I think it's pretty straightforward. It's either Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. Agree or disagree?
Yes, I agree. I guess my only hesitation is if they want to try to get more out of that pick and either risk it and wait till their 12th pick, possibly get some other QB, or I don't know if they'll try to get somebody in free agency, but the point being that from that second pick, they may be able to get, other picks, other pieces, and fix other things and wait a little bit on QB. But I don't really see that happening.
So you're talking more about how do I say it?
Why don't we? So the ranking, or do you want to wait on the rankings you
have?
have?
We'll wait. Well, look, I mean, we don't need to talk much about this quarterback because they're not like the quarterback's position specifically. The running back position, we know that there's growth there. We don't have to worry about that. I don't think there's any reason they should even look at a running back, especially with the rest of the holes. Your suggestion sounds like selling the 2 pick to speed up the rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, they drastically need help on defense. They definitely need help on wide receiver, especially if Cooks goes. And
he will. He's gonna be.
He doesn't. He wants out. And then they have a ton of tight ends, and I think that they could work with what they have. But actually, what are their? Let me look at their free agents.
Jordan Akins and OJ Howard are both free agents. Okay. So their tight end problem is effectively solved at this moment. Because as they should have last year, they need to continue to build the tight end that they drafted in 2021 or 2020.
You're talking about Brevin?
Yeah, Brevin Jordan. Yeah, he should have played a lot more this past year. I know he was injured for like 3 games, and he was outsnapped by Jordan Akins for some dumb reason, and I can't for the life of me figure that out. But not forward, not backward.
Yeah, he was drafted 2021. Yeah, so long-winded way of saying, like, beyond QB, they have many other things they need to fix. And they could use a trade to fix said other positions, and find another route with QB, maybe a 1-year solution, or see if they get something at pick 12.
Pick 12 is drastically going to reduce your quarterback ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's wise to expect anything to fall to you at 12 and expect longevity out of it. The 1 year solution is a band-aid. And honestly, if any of your other picks or any of your other pieces that you build around by trading down that 2 pick, if they don't work out, you're setting yourself back likely an entire year. I think the smart play is taking Bryce at 2 or CJ if the Bears trade out of 1. It came out earlier today, Wednesday, that the Bears are officially rolling with Justin Fields, or it seems they're officially rolling with Justin Fields. It's not even an announcement. And they're going to basically sell the first round pick to the highest bidder, which means that chances are that pick won't get traded until like April 26th, the day before the draft or the day of the draft, if they trade it at all. So
I think they should.
Well, we'll talk about them on Friday's show. They are the first on our line of the NFC focus show. Spoiler alert. But I think that would be the smart move for them. It's in dynasty leagues that has to be your strength point, is that has to be a top 5 pick. Either one of them are building. They're going to be part of a rebuild. D'Amico Ryans has a multi-year deal. He's worked with the team. I think he's going to be perfectly fine, both as coach and help them rebuild. I can't prove this, but I also have to assume that him going into this had talks with this front office and said, listen, if you're going through this rebuild, I want a voice in it because I don't need to come here. And he didn't. He goes, I can go try and make I can go try and build a sandcastle out of, wet gum over in Denver if I want. Let me have something to do. So I think he's going to have a strong opinion in this front office for where they're going to go. There are a large amount of wide receiver free agents. There's a large amount of cornerback free agents, which is 2 very important positions for them. The only thing that can, and they don't even really, I mean, they have 37 million in cap space after the adjusted total that came out on Monday, which is 224.8, I believe, was the cap that the NFL had announced. If they even announced it yet. I don't even think it's fully official, but I think that's what has been reported. So I would say rebuild. I would go with keep 2. At 12, you're going to have an option for a wide receiver. Are you, Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnson, or Johnston, excuse me, like Jackson Smith and Jigba. You have 3 good wide receiver options. And if you feel like you can trade down and get good value, a lot of mock drafts are seeing Addison and Jackson Smith going a little, beginning to mid-20s, if not later. Trade down, and that would be, in my opinion, where you would get your extra picks. Find a defensive lineman you can use in the 3rd or 4th round. Find a piece that you can build in 2 years. Another tight end in the 4th or 5th round. So that'd be my opinion of how they should go about it. Either way, I think that is, in at least a dynasty format, a huge pick on keeper leagues, that quarterback focus. Wide receivers, it depends on who they get and where they sign. That's going to be a building process. 10 to 12 leagues, you're still probably looking at a top 15, maybe top 20 quarterback at best. But like we talked about, another weakness being the pass catchers. It looked like Brevin Jordan, would be a good fit at the tight end spot, was used too sparingly. Brandon Cooks is unhappy. He's due $18 million this year. I have to think that late draft and the free agent are where the help comes from. How serious should this year be for Texans in terms of finding these right pieces? We know it's not going to happen in 1 year. We've said that. How long do you think that will take? And what kind of pieces should Houston target as far as pass catchers?
As far as pass catch, I mean, they definitely need pass catchers. I would say, and if you're grouping tight end into pass catcher, I would say
it's everything.
I would say that, to your point, they should they don't need to go ham on tight end yet. I think that they should get a wide receiver that's true to the position, and tight end they could. I mean, so sorry, the headset decided to cut out.
I just turned mine down too, so that was literally 4 seconds of blank screen. Sorry, continue.
I was gonna say that I don't think they need to do anything this year with tight end because they have a passable option. If at the very least he is there as a blocker and a dump off option, I think they need to build more wide receiving chops and obviously like we talked about QB and hopefully running back. Wow. What the heck is his name? Damian Pierce
Damian Pierce.
like it wasn't just a result of a bad offense and that was the only bright spot, which I don't think is the case. I think he is a talented guy that showed us what he could do, and I think that they will be able to use him very, very well. Granted, he's not a pass catching running back. Anyways, long-winded way of saying I don't think they need to go after a tight end, maybe somebody late if they want, but definitely wide receiver, a true alpha. They don't have a guy like Cooks is great, but he's never really been that number one guy that everybody like. He keeps getting traded around, whether that's him, the team's looking for somebody who's truly, truly an alpha. It's not to knock his talent, but he just hasn't really fit that role.
Right. I will put two names out there for both pass catcher and tight end. Irv Smith, impending free agent, low return to cost value. He was not able to play much of this year. It hurt his overall market value. Irv Smith. Pass catchers, you need one, at least one besides that's going to come outside of the draft, in my opinion. The first name that really pops, I mean, there's actually a couple names on here that make sense. I guess I'll throw a couple out. For low cost on return, Matt Collins. He showed a lot of promise when Hunter Renfrow was out. I'll also throw for the experience factor, although you're going to have to deal with injuries, Jarvis Landry. I like both of those as options for this team. Their fantasy rankings, 32nd at quarterback in 2022. Wide receiver was 30th. Tight end 30th. Those are rough. Running back 18th. I don't think we have to worry much about running back. Their defense was 27th ranked. Where are we putting this? What's the ceiling for 2023 here going forward? I would say QB. We're going to come to a consensus on this. We got about 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
I would say QB. You're probably looking like your best is probably 15th.
I was just going to say middle of the pack. Yeah.
Okay. I like that. Wide receivers. There's a lot more room for growth there. I think this could be, as far as the wide receiver group, I would say 12th would be their best case.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Tight end. It depends on where they want to go here. I'm going to keep this a little lower because I think that, like you said, this shouldn't be necessarily a focus for them. But, I'm thinking like in the 20th range.
Yeah. I was going to say like anywhere from 22 to 25. Yeah.
Okay. I'll go 22. I think 22 is fair. RB with the growth, I'm happy to put 12th or 13th here.
Yeah, 12 again. Yeah.
12th. And then defense, this is going to be we're going to really hammer down more on defense when we get to the Magic 8-Ball show, but I want to see something near like 20th would be great.
Yeah. I think you get to like 18th.
That's going to be the toughest part because defensive players, I think, blossom a little slower. So we're going to do our first break right here. When we come back, we have the Colts and the Raiders, which we are going to chickadee chit chat about. Taylor, do that thing like so much.
See y'all on the flip.
All right, welcome back to part 2 of episode 39, the AFC Focus Show.
No, they're ignorant. That's ignorant.
Just want to let you guys know. Moving on, we're going to focus on what seems like an equal but maybe bigger mess than the Texans, which was the Indianapolis Colts. Maybe it was just because of what happened mid-season with everything that happened between, mid-season. And what I mean by mid-season is like weeks like 4 to 18. Because it wasn't good. Did you remember the time this year when the Colts beat the Chiefs?
I honestly had forgotten that, but
A lot of people did. Yeah, that
they
happened.
did
That
have
was the
some
thing.
close games, weirdly enough. Not as consistently as the Texans did.
Yeah, they did. They were, or the Vikings. Vikings are the best.
Mm.
So many one score losses. I think the Raiders actually had the most one score losses, to the point where like they would have been like the 3 seed if the results were flipped, something like that. Anyway, we'll talk about the Raiders shortly. Colts sputtered most of the year despite having some really big shining moments. They blanked the Vikings for one half of the year. They had a 33 out one half of the year, one half of the game. They took a 33-0 lead into halftime. They did blow it in the second half, but let's take the positives. They beat Kansas City, like we said, in week 3. The first position was that needed a change, or needs a change still, I guess, is head coach. I don't think that's an overstatement. Frank Reich was let go. Jeff Saturday came in. Jeff Saturday.
I thought he did okay, all things considered.
Yeah, I did too. But the I would say the majority of public consumption of that and its result was basically like, that was a waste. And it's like, he was kind of handed a
Yeah.
pile, it wasn't very good. It was,
That guy's ruining a perfectly good game of football.
that's about the 4-1-1 of it. That is not yours. Anyway, more dog stuff. It's almost like a child, but not. So yeah, I think the searching for a new head coach, whether it comes to Jeff Saturday or not, this team has some big things to fix. They have a top 5 running back, obviously, Jonathan Taylor. When he's healthy and supported by his team and his game plan, he's good. It's like no doubt. From the play standpoint, what can we fix? Again, QB seems to be the most obvious answer. Matt Ryan he's there, but me. Sam Ellinger, I don't know. Nick Foles I'm 100% convinced, an opportunity for them to tank. So fine by me, whatever. They were pretty much out of it anyway. I don't know where else you can go with it. Like you have a really good wide receiver in Michael Pittman. Paris Campbell showed up this year. The sad part is Paris Campbell is now a free agent.
Mm-hmm.
And probably is going to get a solid deal from someone, if not Indianapolis. Alec Pierce kind of had ups and downs in the year, but he was a rookie. There's a lot of different places you can get some stuff done. So is there obviously defense probably needs at least a little bit of a perk up. That's their most solid. Obviously they didn't have Shaq Leonard basically the whole year. Jelani Woods, thumbs up on the tight end that they drafted, starting to work out for them. Kylan Granson filled in admirably for him. Who's a good fit for this team? And I'm not talking coach, because coach can work with some pieces, in my opinion. I think you need some pieces that need to be versatile. I want to say they need another pass catcher.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Alec Pierce can't be that. So let's get that clear. I think if you have 3 weapons that you can throw to at any time. Now, if that means re-signing Paris Campbell, go for it.
Yeah. He's been a weird, he was highly drafted, did pretty well in college, and just wasn't quite what they wanted at the NFL level until this season. He finally started doing stuff. Injuries, kind of got in the way off and on the past couple of seasons. I would say that they should probably, unfortunately for him, move on from him and try and find another piece that can be more consistent for them. Unless they just really feel like he's finally developing. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, part of me doesn't feel like Pittman is an alpha, but he is a very, very good wide receiver. I think if they could get somebody that can be that one step up from Pittman, and Pittman is the number 2, then they would be cruising along with JT, obviously. I don't think they need to do anything at tight end. Jelani Woods showed what he had. Kylan Granson was also very solid. both rookies. Yeah, I think they need to focus on tightening up their offensive line and hopefully getting some pieces back healthy on defense and maybe adding some pieces there. So yeah, I would say the highest priority would be QB and probably the O-line or defense.
O-line and defense, specifically the O-line. I mean, how many times was I screaming during our weekly shows?
Mm.
It's not the quarterback. It's not Matt Ryan. He is not mobile. And it was so bad to the fact they put in a semi-mobile quarterback in Sam Ellinger, and it got worse.
Yeah.
So if it like I can't say it anymore. If they don't do something with this offensive line, they will not move forward as a team. They need O-line bad.
Mm.
And I think the only thing that would help them more at this point would be another first-round pick to get something like, well, one of the better offensive tackles in this draft. I mean, I guess that's the overarching benefit for them. They're not going to get a Peter Skoronski or a Paris Johnson, excuse me. Going into their second round pick, they have the 35th overall pick, which is 2-4, I believe. 2-4, 2-3. One of those two. You could take Cody Mauch from North Dakota State, Darnell Wright, tackle from Tennessee, something on the offensive line. So that would be my first two picks in this draft for them are, in my opinion, quarterback tackle or quarterback guard in some sense, something on that offensive line. Give an extra weapon to whoever you're going to put at quarterback. Because if it ain't Matt Ryan, which I don't think it should be, you need to do something different for this to help this team move forward. I also expect, we talk about Pittman and Pierce should both take another step forward with a quarterback that can have time in the pocket. We saw Pittman kind of stagger this year, but I mean, what are you going to do when your quarterback gets sacked an average of 4.5 times per game and drives end because of it? And that was and he did all that without Jonathan Taylor for what, 5-6 games?
Right.
They did not have someone who really should soak up, I'll say 50% of snaps, 60% at times. So without that, that's my cord. Cat. Get out of here. I'm getting attacked by my cat right now. It's been an animal filled episode. Have you noticed that? Like we've really been, the dog decided to eat the bottom of the bowl. Now the cat's over here on all of the illegal drugs. Not good. But between Pittman going back forward with a quarterback, Alec Pierce, I think he should take another step forward again. He can see more opportunities. If you can get someone who will build for next year, this team could take a step forward. I'm excited for them about that they're going to prove me right. Is that selfish? Probably. Quarterback position 26th last year. For 2022 in a fantasy ranking. Where do you see this quarterback position? I would assume, this is assuming, it's fair, they will end up with Will Levis. They seem to like him. Where are you seeing this for him? Like, what's the high side for him with the pieces around him with this O-line, which even if they get a one piece, they're still going to have some issues here. What's your peak for this quarterback position in a fantasy sense going into next year?
I wouldn't go above 20.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair assessment. Wide receiver, they were 20th roughly last year, plus or minus some. Alec Pierce had good games. Paris Campbell was great. There's a lot of question mark about this. I almost feel comfortable putting a range, but I don't think it gets a whole heck of a lot better.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, honestly, I feel like this is kind of going to go sideways. You have a combination of whether or not they keep Campbell, whether or not they go after somebody else. Got to get used to play with the team. They're going to have to get used to a head coach. They're going to have to get used to a new QB probably. I don't see it, unfortunately, getting too much better.
I was thinking like I was gonna say 17 to 21st, and I was gonna leave it like you have a step forward you can make, but
Mhm.
you also are gonna have like, much more to what you were just saying. Jonathan Taylor's would hopefully, knock on wood, be back for more games, be a little bit more involved. I would say he's gonna still soak up some of the ceiling. So
Yeah.
17 to 21st, and we'll range it. That's fine. Tight end position. I put 28th here, and that's because they were again pass catching issues. Let's assume that somewhat is fixed. Not to the tune where the wide receiver, but you have to assume they'll take a step forward, just like the wide receivers could.
I think this has the most potential to take the largest step forward just because of what we saw with Jelani Woods and honestly Kylan, like I think they both are very solid tight ends from a receiving perspective. I don't know exactly where they fit in from a blocking perspective and what that means for the team, but
Right.
I could see them taking a pretty, I mean, tight ends have been notoriously slow to develop 3+ years to really come out and be somebody that is you know, making a big impact for the team consistently. But from what we saw, I would say at least somewhere around 20.
I would even go a step further. I'd go in the high teens. I'll
Yeah.
say 18th.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I like I like where they could go. Running back, I put 14th, but again, missing time. What are we thinking? Fifth, sixth here?
Yeah, I mean,
You'd
JT
hope.
is so good. He's still so young.
You'd hope.
Injuries aside, yeah.
Yeah, if barring anything, if he plays 16 out of the 18, or well, I'll say 15 out of the 17 games. Excuse me, 15. If he plays 15 games next year, top five. I mean, he's going to keep up with the Nick Chubbs and the Derrick Henrys and the maybe not in fantasy point production for the Christian McCaffrey or the Austin Eckler because they're pass catching, but man, this guy can rush. Biggest step forward defense, and again, we'll talk more about this as we go into this caveat for all of these. They were 30th in defensive efficiency. The Colts were, despite being in the top 6 in QB pressures. Uh,
This one's tough because, like you said, they
no
had some
Shaq Leonard. Yeah, they had
right.
no Shaq Leonard. There were some holes at places. However, the other thought we have to present to ourselves here is that the Colts also have free agents such as Bobby Okereke, Taekwon Lewis, EJ Speed, and Yannick Ngakwe. A lot of that close front seven, a lot of the close portions to that line will be free agents. It's talking about money. They have 11.8 million only.
Yeah, that's tough.
You're going to be fitting in the budget. Shaq Leonard coming back instantly puts us 5 to 7 spots ahead for me.
Mhm.
And then it just matters to what you can fill in the gaps. This is going to be bottom part of this draft for them, I think, is going to be defensive.
Yeah, if they can get somewhere in the low 20s, I think
22nd.
yeah.
I think that's fair. I think that's going to be a good benchmark for them. And again, a lot more close, a lot closer of games in that sense. So yeah, Colts with a lot to fix. I'm interested to see how this quarterback position plays out. This could be a team that takes some leaps forward depending on play calling. Coaching is a big thing for this team. I don't think there might have been one other team, and I'm just leaving the door open for the possibility that there was another team that had as many play calling issues and game plan issues as the Colts did.
Yeah, I mean, if they can get a good head coach that whether they try to maintain a semblance of the system they previously had or if they just completely move on, and then if they can fix the O-line, I wouldn't hate it if they move forward with Matt Ryan and developed a guy behind him. I mean, they still have him on contract, obviously.
Yeah, you would have that'd be an opportunity to trade down, take an extra couple picks. But I think the Colts I think they need some youth. I don't think Matt Ryan's the answer. He's 38 years old.
Yeah, something like that.
So it's time. All right, moving on. Las Vegas Raiders. Now we get into the real juice of this. They hold the 7th overall pick. The Raiders are one of those teams that looks stunning on paper, and then when they got on the field, nothing seemed to really pull together. Devontae Adams and Darren Waller should be the dangerous tandem. Neither of them were gelling really until the Raiders were eliminated for playoff contention. Injuries hurt that, to be fair. Josh Jacobs is likely on his way to market, and that leaves a giant hole in this offense for someone who is a top 5 running back this year in fantasy points. We saw how productive Josh Jacobs was when he got the bell cow. He had over 1,650 rush yards, had 12 touchdowns, tying a career high, and had a career high 400 receiving yards as well. This has to be a trusty spot for whoever ends up here. There is a chunk of the playbook that will go there. There's a lot of free agents out there. Is this a draft spot somewhere in the draft? Is this a free agent spot? Do you trust Zamir White to do anything like anyone else can out of your options? What does that look like to both, actually, hold on. Free agent class. Yes. Is there enough here to bring Jacobs back? That's my other question. I'm looking where to try to find where it was.
Yeah, where do they? So they have 18.4 million.
Correct.
If they bring Jacobs back, they're really kind of
They're going to be broke.
yeah. That would be tough for them to do.
But, and let's leave this but. It is a very well-known fact. They are shopping Derek Carr's $30 million contract. That makes that number, arguably, assuming they don't take a lot back or get picks for him, somewhere in the $40 million range, in which that is a lot more palatable, to put 15 to 20 million a year in Josh Jacobs' pocket.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, this is very much of a homer thing to say, but this McDaniels is there, and the situation kind of reminds me of when the former Celtics, like older players, went to the Nets. It kind of feels like Patriots players are going to go here. I mean, there's been talk of Brady potentially going here. I don't really buy it.
Well, he retired, so.
Right. I mean, he retired
We
before,
hope.
but who
No,
knows
it's for good
if
this time. It's for
Yeah.
good this time, don't you know?
maybe, I don't know, maybe Damian Harris ends up here.
Cheap contract there.
Yeah, exactly. I would like to see what they have in Zamir White. I was disappointed they didn't try to see themselves a little bit more what they had in him. But yeah, no, if they are able to get rid of Carr and open up and get that money, Jacobs was phenomenal. That would make it so they really only need to, figure out the QB situation a little bit on defense.
Yeah, that would be the tough part. I guess would be the defense. The defense. They had a little bit of a hole there. We can talk about that in the Magic 8-Ball show. Happy early birthday to Josh Jacobs. He turns 25 on the 5th. Just found that out. So shouts out. His market value, according to sporttrack.com, is about $12.5 million a year, which is very palatable if you trade Derek Carr and you don't take a lot back. Also, according to sporttrack.com as well, Miles Sanders, who is a free agent, $7.2 million a year. I don't hate that. If I'm looking for a solid piece to run, you can even run Zamir White with him. And depending on your quarterback situation, if they even have a half decent scrambling that Derek Carr, for the most part, doesn't have, all of a sudden you have Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow will still be there. Darren Waller will still be there. There's potential in that offense there. I have to like that. The other elephant in the room, like we talked about, quarterback position, seems to be an AFC constant so far. Have we found the issue? The Raiders were pretty open immediately after the season ends about shopping Derek Carr. Carr was acting like he played his last game in a Raiders uniform. Now, no social media. The options here are endless, right? We just talked about them possibly trading it. Unlike the two teams above who desperately need a quarterback to probably take a good stab at a rebuild, the The Raiders have trade assets and arguably a trade piece that may just need a different system around him. There's endless forks in the road here to finding their new signal caller. Is it draft? Is it trade? Free agent market seems to be a little thin, but also a possibility. Take your pick, right? Like, who are you picturing in a Raiders uniform as their signal caller next year? Right.
Jimmy G. I don't know.
It's not a bad guess. There's no bad guess here. At 7 in the draft, you could assume they would have an option for CJ Stroud if our first 2 are correct and the Bears don't trade their 1.
Mm-hmm.
Could the Bears trade their 1 to the Raiders? Like I said, they have trade assets here. They have players who there's not a lot of time until there's bigger contracts coming up than what we have. The Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. I just had to say it like that. Let me find their players. Clellan Farrell, Denzel Perryman, Jayon Brown, Jerry Tillery, some defensive pieces that are free agents. Talked about Josh Jacobs, Mac Collins, and Foster Moreau, also free agents. I don't. There's a lot of different ways they can go with this, and I'm honestly, this is one of the biggest question marks that I have when I wrote the show is which options do the Raiders have? You trade Derek Carr. What's your market value for Derek Carr at $30 million based on his production? Second round pick and some other lowers. Maybe. Roughly. So if you're taking a second round pick, well, you're probably not going to get like a top, you're going more in Hendon Hooker range than you're going Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, CJ Stroud. Your free agent class consists of best options, probably Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Mike White. Potentially. That's scary though, because his consistency is the issue there.
Right.
You got to think that draft and trade in some fashion, and it may be the hardest thing for them to pull off, is that you're going to need a little bit of both. If you attach something with Derek Carr and you get back a first round pick and you can make a run at Anthony Richardson. The other big question mark here is we have a brand new, as of today, with Tom Brady's retirement, we have a brand new team in the quarterback race. There is a team here it's not, we have one, and worst comes to worst, I guess we could sit on it. We don't have one.
Right.
The Buccaneers do not have one. As a front office, I'm assuming probably since last March when he unretired, they've been planning for this day. And that would have been smart. But that's a whole new curveball that comes in and, on February 1st. So I don't think Derek Carr is a Raider next year. I will say that. I don't know where he plays.
I would agree. It's just really odd because one of the biggest reasons that Davante Adams supposedly went there was because he wanted to play with his old college quarterback. And now Carr's
the team doesn't want his college quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what that means for Davante Adams if he wants out now too, but that would really change things.
He has said on social media that he is all set there and he wants to see this through. The package deal for them, that's tough, right? You like sending both of them out and getting draft capital. You're talking probably 5 or 6 picks, 3 first rounders, and some sort of replacement players or defensive players along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And that is unsustainable for a lot of these teams. Like I can only think of maybe 2 teams that could pull that off. and who actually need quarterbacks, and they have much cheaper options to get sustainable offensive pieces like that. So I have a lot of questions about how the Raiders are going to do this.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting. That's the only thing I got. 2022 fantasy rankings, quarterback 18th. I'm going to put a question mark here because we
Yeah, I
don't
was
know.
gonna say.
You can't I want to say if Devontae stays, which seems to be the indication, they were 7th combined group, which is mostly Devontae Adams, by the way. I'll put it in the same number if that's fair. They don't have Matt Collins, but they'll end up with somebody else. So I'd say 7th again.
Yeah, that's perfectly fair. Mac Hollins did a like very good job compared to like we hadn't really, I don't want to say heard, like we knew his name, but he hadn't done anything to this level. So they'll definitely, I mean, I guess they'll have Renfro, but
Yeah,
he
they'll have
doesn't
Renfro.
really stretch the field like Hollins was.
Now they'll end up picking somebody somewhere, whether it's wide receiver from the draft or from free agency. There are a lot of cheap wide receivers in this free agent class, and
They
it's
should
worth
take Aguilar back.
Aguilar, according to this, has one of the highest market values of available wide receivers, and I don't know how.
Yeah, I don't see
get
that
it.
either.
I'd rather pay DJ Chark $1 million less a year.
Right.
Such names as Alan Lazard, Jacoby Myers. I already brought up Mac Hollins as well for another team. Olamide Zaccheaus, great wide receiver 3 option. Somehow Zach Pascal has a slightly higher market value than Paris Campbell. That's a lie. Noah Brown from the Cowboys. We saw him do very, very well this year. So just a few names that they could focus on right there. Tight end position, I put them. I already wrote it in as 10th. Darren Waller is still probably a top 6 tight end in this league. He just needs to stay healthy. Running back position again, question mark, because I don't see them going back to Josh Jacobs. What do you do there? Defense will again batten down the hatches on this a little more when we get to the Magic 8 Ball. 26th in defense was, especially in second half defense, where they were just atrocious. They have a lot of pieces to fill. I don't feel comfortable putting them much higher than 26th, and I'm being honest.
Yeah. I mean, they're gonna make an effort here, so I would say maybe 23, 24.
I'll put 23. That's fair. All right, moving along. Tennessee Titans, the 11th pick in the first round. Titans are coming off of, we'll call it the collapsing season. They were 7-3 through 10 games, and they lost 6 of their last 7, ended below 500. Ryan Tannehill missed 5 games, and when he was in the game, he didn't feel like he made the team exuberantly better. Is this the time for Tennessee to start thinking about a large-scale rebuild? First question right out the gate.
What's Henry's contract?
2024 free agent, if I recall correctly. I'm going to absolutely test that theory or that knowledge. Hold on. That's the wide receivers for next year. Oh my God, Mike Evans is a free agent next year. Oh Jesus, he's gone. Yet Derrick Henry, UFA 2024, current market value, granted, a year off, year early, is 15.3 million. That'll probably go up, assuming Saquon gets a 16 if he gets it.
I mean, I don't think that they can do it, but it almost feels like the team has to think that with Henry until 2024, they need to try to make another push. He's a free agent in 2024 or?
Correct. So he has 1 year left in his contract.
Right, he only has one left, yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, they should really consider at least the beginnings of a rebuild. But they're working with Burks, obviously, who showed some potential, was injured, didn't really get to play a lot with Tannehill. They definitely need more at the wide receiving position. So yeah,
Yeah.
maybe they trade Henry away to try to start the rebuild.
They need to do something with money. That's for sure. This is the
Yeah.
first team, and actually, I think it's the only team in the top 15 of the draft that is not even close to being on the cap. They are negative 23.9 million. They're 23.9 million over the cap as it sits going into next year. Ryan Tannehill, if you're not benefiting this team, bye-bye. Some way, bye-bye. You can't sit on that contract. This is a good opportunity for anything that's going to make you a positive as far as cap cuts. There's going to be some cap casualties coming from this team. It's simply they have to. There's no free agency for this team, and that means this team likely will not get better. The wide receiver group is aging. Besides Treylon Burks, there's Tannehill. The defensive line for this team, the defensive group in general, is injured far too constantly. They led the league in IR placements with 90 in the season. 90.
Damn.
That's disgusting. 90 IR placements. Offensively, it's Derrick Henry, and we know that. But you have 1 year left of that. Man, could you? I'm going to throw out this absolutely nuts, wild curveball. Do you package 11 and Derrick Henry and get like the first number 1 pick from the Bears, Khalil Herbert, and like another pick later in the draft or a couple other picks later in the draft? Absolute wild thought.
Maybe. I mean, I think I think like we're saying here, they need to really consider getting youth and considering,
That's Khalil Herbert. That's the picks.
yeah. I don't hate that at all. Derrick Henry is the biggest piece that they have right now to work with. Beyond that draft pick, the 11th pick.
Right.
Yeah. I don't
And
hate it.
here's the crazy part. At that point, you can draft the replacement for Ryan Tannehill.
Right.
Do you do it? I don't know. Because again, a lot of pieces, a lot of holes. But their biggest the places to fill from here, offensive line, and then defense just has to stay healthy. That's the bottom line. There's a lot of questions surrounding the direction of this team. Tannehill's 34 years old. Taylor Lewan's contract is up next summer, as well as Danico Autry, Jeffrey Simmons. The defense will be having to get repackaged. This is probably, in my opinion, the biggest draft of them rebuilding right now. You need to make the call now, not next year when you have no time.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take on it.
Well, not to mention the talent in this. I mean, and next year's class as well, but this upcoming class, like if you want to take advantage of that, you're right. Yeah, you got to make a decision and use the value you can spread around right now to get those picks and players.
Yeah, I think this is a very, very crucial draft for the Titans for the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like 24, 20, 23, 24, 25 into 26. There was no fantasy output from basically anybody but Derrick Henry. Burks underperformed. He was injured a bit. Robert Woods has crossed into his 30s. The third wide receiver is inconsistent in name and production.
Mm-hmm.
The tight end might be the best outlook of any receiving position.
I was just say that was a bright spot.
Chigo Konkwu, and I think you're going to have to roll with him. Jeff Swaim and Austin Hooper are free agents, and away they go if you don't have the money for them.
Mm-hmm.
The defensive line faces questions. I don't know if I put a lot of stock in this team for this year. I don't expect them to be close to 500 without some major swings at the game plan and with the picks and some trades and some cat casualties. This is rough. Fantasy rankings, got about 4 minutes, so we'll real quick over the fantasy rankings. 2022, I put QBs roughly 25th. I don't think that's far off. Tannehill was bleh, and he was the best of the quarterbacks.
Right.
At this point, we have to assume Tannehill will be back. Where are you for their quarterback ranking? Because I'm literally smelling the same number.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I feel like we've seen better from Tannehill, but
And hope we
that's
get it. I'd
yeah,
rather be wrong on that one.
right.
Wide receiver. Um, there are some good cheap options on the waiver wire if you can cut enough to get there.
Mhm.
We talked about that for the 2023 wide receiver group. That is 2024. 2023. Oh, there it is. Okay. Cheap names. Nick Westbrook is one of them, actually. They list Jawan Johnson from the Saints as a wide receiver. Wrong. Just saying. Greg Dortch. He was very nice. Darius Slayton. Couple cheap names, both free agents. I don't hate Jalen Guyton, who was a former Charger. Didn't play a lot. Demarcus Robinson from Baltimore. Very well. Market value just above $2 million a year. I'll take that if you can get there. Where do you see the wide receivers? 31st combined last year.
Probably in the 26 range.
I was going to say probably mid 20s.
Yeah.
Tight end. I mean, 22nd last year, which is not bad. Chigakaku came alive. Hooper was a very good fill-in for 3 to 5 targets and about 20 to 30 yards. I want to say somewhere in the like mid to upper teens, like in the 17th or 18th range.
Yep. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Running backs, Derrick Henry. Let's assume they keep him. He's on contract. I put him 5th this year. His ceiling's really realistically 2nd, probably 3rd.
Yeah. 3rd or 4th.
I'll put 3rd. Defense, a little bit shining here. They were 15th. It's I think our highest defensive ranked team so far. A lot of pieces that got to come back, but for 2023, on a defensive side, I'm in the same range. I'm thinking 13th, 14th.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they're losing too many pieces defensively, so yeah.
The one shining spot. The thing is, they have their offensive pieces they'll need to retool this year. And whether that includes Derrick Henry going into next year or not, Derrick Henry is about to hit that big 3-0. So maybe kind of think about that. But yeah, this year offense, get a couple more pieces, start retooling offensive line. Need that. Next year, more defensive. Like I said, there's Danico Autry and Jeffrey Simmons are 2 big names that your defense, you're probably not going to replace them. And if your cap is that bad right now and you don't make moves, you surely won't re-sign them next year. So that's going to lead us to our final break. We have 3 teams.
1, 2, 3. Para mis amigos español. It is the Nueva York Jets.
The New England Patriots and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Our last 3 of the AFC Focus show we will go into on the next part. For the final time, would you please do that thing?
We'll see y'all on the flip.
Doses. It is that time of the episode where we come back for part 3 and Derek has some snarky thing to say and Derek doesn't this time. So we're going to keep rolling with the AFC Focus show. As usual, still Derek, still Taylor. Unless someone's hacking into the stream right now, there's no one else with us. So
I was gonna say I changed my name, but
you have to file legal documents for that. Next thing
not
we'll
in
talk
this
about.
digital age.
I just sent a text message and my name is now Rodriguez. Next team, New York Jets. They will pick 13th? Question mark? Yes, 13th in the first round of the NFL draft coming this April. Jets have stated since midseason, when their problems began with the quarterback, they were one piece away from not only competing in the AFC East, but winning it, waltzing into the playoffs, doing all these fun things that they have confidence in with no evidence of. The defense took a massive leap forward. Additions of Sauce Gardner and Jermaine Johnson. They held the Bills to less than 20 points at one point this season. Seems to be promising. Offensively, Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall joined the club. If Brees Hall doesn't get injured, rookie of the year, probably hands down. I would say he doesn't tear his ACL. He's at least top two, right?
Yeah.
He missed 2/3 of the season. Likely would have been a rookie of the year, in my opinion. Garrett Wilson, right there with potential rookie offensive player of the year, if not rookie of the year. Behind them, however, is the quarterback issue, which is best summed up.
Okay, toilet paper. Toilet paper.
Toilet paper.
Toilet paper.
Big toilet paper. Used toilet paper. Zach Wilson is rapidly becoming unfavored. I spelled that unflavored.
I just saw that.
So
Yeah.
if you think it's just me who can't speak, do I have surprise for you? He's becoming unfavored as the quarterback option going forward. Elijah Moore has been vocal about these issues. And then he kind of was just like, I'll deal with it and leave when the time comes. Corey Davis has 1 year left on his deal and is hit or miss at best. Do the Jets attempt to trade up for a quarterback? Mike White and Joe Flacco are free agents. You have Zach Wilson, which is, it's kind of like trying to build a V8 engine out of Play-Doh. Is this the spot where they take a shot? Do they go and try and trade up for a CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson? Or is this, we bring in a veteran for 1 to 2 years, let Wilson train behind him and see what we have in Wilson because we just signed him to this contract?
I mean, the Jets have got to be thinking they're like cursed or something. They drafted Sam Darnold high. Now they've drafted Zach Wilson high, and they literally are close to one piece away. They had Brees Hall, Garrett Wilson. Like, they have offensive talent. And if Zach, like, they must have been thinking coming into the season that they were like rolling, they were on their way. And then Zach Wilson was just awful.
Despite the quarterback problems, they really were right there.
Yeah.
Like up until week 14, they were solidly in this. And even at week 16 against the Seahawks, they had an opportunity to be in the playoffs and they just didn't convert. What you were just saying, Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall will be back.
Mm-hmm.
Brees Hall likely going to be ready for training camp. Garrett Wilson is ready for training camp right now.
Right.
You don't really need wide receiver pieces. I think one of your tight ends is coming back. I believe Conklin is still under. I will look that up as we speak right now.
And they have what, Uzama?
I think Uzama is a free agent, but don't quote me on that. Let me shiggity check.
I mean, to answer your original question,
they're both under contract. Neither one are free agents.
Yeah,
so yeah,
okay.
they're both coming back. Even better.
It's tough to just, let Zach Wilson go coming into his third year. Yeah. Coming into his third year. But after seeing what you saw, I think now it would be like in the similar situation to the Titans, like with the class that's coming up and the talent that you have and you're building, I think you have to make that call.
Yeah. Yeah, you're almost forced into it, right?
Right.
Notable free agents for the Jets. The big ones for me, I mean, Quan Alexander, their inside linebacker, is a free agent. LaMarcus Joyner, but they didn't play with him for half the year, if I'm not mistaken. We talked about Mike White and Joe Flacco, but the biggest pieces for me are George Fant, their right tackle, and their center, Connor McGovern. The offensive line here is probably number 2 behind their quarterback situation to get figured out. And after that, I have a lot of faith in this roster construction.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say Sauce Gardner will continue to get better, but he very well could.
Yeah.
Jermaine Johnson is a great defensive end. The problem with their cap situation comes with Quinnen Williams, who wants money yesterday. And they're $2.8 million under the cap, or over the cap, excuse me. As it sits right now, you're not bringing White or Flacco back. Joyner and Fant would be the only two that you would potentially look at. I don't know who else for cap casualties you could look at for their roster. So that's kind of that would be the only thing that makes sense in my mind is as a team that needs to create that cap because you're this close. You have to do it now, right? You have this 13th pick. And other than that, you have to cut to find room for everybody, right? The only thing I
Yeah.
could think. It's the only thing I could think. Trying to find who is going to be a free agent when, and it's not really working out for me. So,
I mean, you already talked about Davis, I think, 2024.
well, that's more or less what I'm trying to find out is because if his cut, okay, that's good. Yeah, Corey Davis, 27 million guaranteed. 12 and a half. Carl Lawson is also a free agent next year. Quinnen Williams is in the last year of his deal.
Mhm.
There's actually a lot. Bryce Hall is a free agent next year. Jordan Whitehead was another really good center. I mean, there's got to be some cap casualty here somewhere. I'm trying to find out what the dead cap is on. Oh, no, Corey Davis is definitely going to get cut.
Yeah.
His dead cap hit is $666,000 out of 11 million. Bye-bye.
That's what I was gonna, yeah, I was looking at him, but I didn't realize he was only 26.
He's 28.
Oh, that's the year he was signed, the age he was signed to the deal. Okay.
Right. Yeah. That sounds about right. I was gonna say he's
That
28
makes
right
more
now.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he's not 26. But that is you're saving yourself $10 million
Mhm.
right there. I don't think you cut Carl. Well, maybe Carl Lawson's 27. So like you have to his dead cap is $333,000. Like there you go. There's your off season right there. You can save yourself. You can go from negative 2.3 to about 20 million right there. 21 million. So to me, those are the two that I'm cutting if I am the Jets. Back to the original question though.
Right.
Quarterback.
If I were on the staff, I would probably try to find someone that could fill in for a year or two and hopefully train up Wilson. I don't think it's worth,
Like Jimmy G.
maybe. I don't know if Jimmy G's the right guy to train up Wilson. I think he's a perfectly fine piece that could, manage and work with the talent they have. What's their pick again? 13?
13. Right now, as it looks for the 13th pick. I mean, it depends on if they need a quarterback, they need a tackle, they really need a linebacker as well. The next one that makes any sense as far as these would probably be Peter Skoronski, who is a tackle. The next one would be if you're looking for a linebacker, you could get Lucas Van Ness at the edge out of Iowa. His average draft positions, on most of them are in the lower teens or the higher teens, excuse me. But you could take him as an edge rusher. You could help out your defense. I think the QB and the tackle are the most important.
Yeah. Man,
So there's
not a
my
lot
other
of options for older guys that they could go after.
well, right. So this is my other thing. So you have Corey Davis, 1-year contract. There is this team sitting up there in I think it is the 7 range. 7, pick 8. The Atlanta Falcons. Okay. They need a wide receiver. Right? You have Corey Davis sitting there. He's not he's not a huge wide receiver value, right? But What if you package 13 Corey Davis and like a fourth rounder and see if you could get yourself 1-8? Because now you have a shot at a quarterback, whoever's there, probably Anthony Richardson. At your best case scenarios, you get a choice of Stroud or Richardson.
Yeah. Guess it depends on, I mean, yeah, you're gonna have to wait and see what happens with pick 1.
Yep.
We're assuming, and it's been the talk that Seattle will stick with Geno.
And
Detroit,
in my opinion, that makes 5 very tradable.
right? Detroit liking what they saw in Goff, they don't do anything there, an assumption. And then Vegas, if they do get rid of Carr and they don't get a quarterback, that would be the biggest wrench in this.
So
At
what you're
pick
talking,
7.
so basically what you're saying is when the Raiders, when the Raiders are on the clock at 7 is when the Jets are picking up the phone at this case.
Yeah.
And that's fair. I don't know where else they could go. I don't know as far as fixing this quarterback spot. Like we said, this free agent class for quarterbacks is very, very.
Yeah.
It's not good. Teddy Bridgewater, Jimmy G is probably the best option for this, in my opinion. I don't see anything else that makes me warm and fuzzy inside.
I would love to see Teddy Bridgewater go there and start, but we've seen him try to do that other places and he's been okay, but just, I don't know. It's not like when he was with the Vikings, I thought there was a lot more promise, but anyways, obviously didn't pan out.
Yeah. Do you overall agree with the sentiment that the quarterback is the one piece missing from this Jets team?
Yeah. I mean, if they get rid of Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, I'm perfectly fine with those being the top 2 receiving options. I don't know what's going on with Elijah Moore beyond the fact that he's like annoyed with his usage. I don't know if there's something else going on there, if there's like a weird team clash or if it's just him and his ego. But the Jets do seem to do some weird stuff. Like they drafted Denzel Mims really high and he's just kind of sitting there making appearances once a year.
Out of nowhere from a fantasy point of view. Elijah Moore is very safely driving himself
the super duper weenie wagon
in the super duper weenie wagon. He just needs to sit back. He's not the wide receiver 1 on this team. He just needs to get used to it. Fantasy rankings. Quarterback 26th for 2023. 20, what do you think, 20th?
Yeah.
I mean, this is, talking about improvement from these teams. Wide receiver 19th. This, I think, could be right around the 10th. I think you're going to see Garrett Wilson take a step forward. There's no reason Elijah Moore can't buck up, mature, and take a step forward. Whoever you end up with as the 3rd wide receiver then becomes a little bit more juicy just by the attention the first 2 get. I would say 10th or 11th here for an entire group. Pending quarterback, of course.
Right.
Maybe a little lower.
I'll go 12th.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just hesitant quarterback wise.
Right. No, get it. That makes sense because they almost directly correlate, right? Tight end 17th this year. I think they could be a little better. 14th.
Oh, I was gonna say keep it right at 17. I mean, Conklin's not a phenomenal tight end, but he definitely like fantasy wise, receiving wise has been very decent. Like
if you're getting a better quarterback, you should see some more usage. These guys are struggling through drives and not getting a lot their way. Tyler Conklin led the team in receiving twice this year, and there were like 3 other games where he had 1 catch. So it's a little tough to pencil that, but I want to say there's more of a ceiling there with a different quarterback, or at least a different set of plays. Matt LaFleur coming in should help, or not Matt LaFleur, Nathaniel Hackett. Excuse me.
Right. Yeah.
Wrong one. Running back 26th this year, but again, you have no Breece Hall for most of the year. If Breece is in this entire year, this is probably a 10th ranking for 12th, 10th or 12th ranking. Where are you in that note for if he's healthy next year?
Yeah, for sure.
I'll put 11th. I'll split it.
Yeah, I mean, he was incredible. I would say at least there.
And then their defense was 4th, which is insane to think about on a yards per game / points allowed basis. They were 4th. Points allowed is the biggest thing. I want to say 6th here. I don't think that you should expect that, especially if they're trading some of these pieces. Where do you say?
Yeah, that makes
6th.
sense. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to let you carry this one. New England Patriots. Surprisingly, they were closer to the bottom of the pile in the AFC than the top, and that's not the norm for Bill Belichick. I'll just tell you that. Bill has already said he'll be back. They've taken on Bill O'Brien as your offensive coordinator going into next year, which I'm sure has to just make Mac Jones absolutely thrilled. Give him the uttermost of goosebumps. Words are difficult right now again. Similar to the Jets, however, the problems here were offensive for most of the season. Their defense was not a huge problem at any given point. They were top 4 in the league or top 5 defensively in tackles for loss, sacks, quarterback pressures, top 10 in opponent yards per game and opponent first downs. The defense wasn't the issue. How does this team get back on track offensively if defense isn't the problem? And the team basically still finishes at 500. Is it play calling? Because we know that had to be fixed. So the next thing I'm thinking is you now have to retool at wide receiver in some way, shape, or form. You're not sitting on a large sum of money by any means.
Right.
Actually, they're
I mean,
better than I thought.
there's
38 million.
high. Yeah.
They have 38 million. So I lied. So they have some. So the youth has been balanced with the checkbook. I actually that gives me a lot. I thought they had less money than that. So that gives me a lot more look. How does this team move forward in a fantasy sense that makes you more tingly? Because I think play calling is part of it, but there has to be a little bit more. Please educate us, Mr. Patriots fan. I'm dying to know.
I mean, the checkbook has always been something that the Patriots have been pretty decent at. They unfortunately don't keep guys around and pay them to keep them around. They find ways to continue to build up young talent and cut the large expenses. And I mean, honestly, one of their biggest expenses would be the tight ends, which we haven't really seen much come out of that. So I'm just pulling up their contracts, but
Already one step ahead of you.
Yeah, Jonnu and Hunter Henry. Jonnu's with the team till 2025. Hunter Henry till 2024. Jonnu has the bigger contract. Hunter Henry has been the more consistent and more like the better usage, at least from a offensive standpoint. I like both of them, but Jonnu unfortunately keeps getting injured. He just hasn't really panned out the way I would have expected. So I don't know if they're going to do something there, or I mean, they have a decent amount of money, like you said, so they don't necessarily need to.
Right.
But they're also losing Jacoby Myers. I think Matthew Slater as well.
Hold on, let me scroll down to where it is because I'm lost all of a sudden. Patriots, John Jones, Devin McCourty, Jacoby Myers, Damian Harris, and Nelson Aguilar. I think the latter two, Damian Harris and Nelson Aguilar, are as good as gone. I don't think you have to worry about them.
Yeah.
Jacoby Myers and Devin McCourty are probably the two I would be most worried about, but you can easily fit them under the bill. Hunter Henry has a $5 million dead cap hit once the league year starts March 1st. That signals to me he will probably be a cap casualty because you can take a stab at something in the free agent market that is large and important.
But yeah, I mean, they need to solidify some things from a receiving perspective. They haven't really been using it. Yeah, if Hunter Henry gets cut, then they'll need to figure something out there because he was their main tight end out there for the most part, especially from a receiving perspective. And then going back to what you said about play calls and whatnot, like getting Bill O'Brien is a huge improvement. I like Patricia, but was not working. Like if they want to throw,
You
they're
could
not
see
gonna.
that.
Yeah, they're not gonna throw him back on defense because young Belichick is dealing with that and doing a fine job. So that's unfortunate because I would like to see Patricia stick with the team somehow, but I don't know where he goes. Anyways, getting O'Brien back, I think we see more of what we saw with Mac Jones in year one. I mean, he was more of a game manager in his first year. So take that and then actually add some more, I hate to say competent offensive calls. But
No, I mean, honestly, his play calling could be best summed up with this 15-second clip.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces.
Okay.
yeah,
It wasn't good.
it was a bit of a last year, unfortunately, which um I think that with O'Brien we're gonna see a better movement of the ball, but we really need to get somebody in at wide receiver or actually utilize Devontae Parker in a better,
While you have
like,
him,
yeah, well, exactly, while we have him. I mean, Parker and Thornton, yeah, they're missing one piece.
wide
I like
receiver wise.
Myers. Yeah, I like Myers. I don't know if he's really, I guess it depends how much he asks if they want him to come back, but um I it's tough for me to say where they can improve because I felt like the biggest place they need to improve was offensive play calling. So now that they're able to do that, if they could, let's say they re-sign the exact same team and now they have Bill O'Brien. I don't think that they're Super Bowl worthy, but they are potential. They could
Wild
go
card.
far enough into the playoffs. They could make a
Yeah.
push.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
they just really need to take that and find pieces that are going to work with O'Brien and Mac in a meaningful manner. And I, I don't know that they're one piece away. Probably
Two,
three,
three.
two, three,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, I don't, and I won't say, I'm not going to name names and say who they should go after because honestly, like receiving wise, the free agent market's not great either.
It's better than we think.
Really. I mean, I like DJ Chark. I don't see that
When
happening.
we're going to start seeing some names that I think are going to come off books that are a little surprising. I think. As for the ones that are out there right now, I'll throw out Jacoby Myers and Alan Lazard have the exact same 12.5 million market value evaluation from Sport Track. I think that's pretty close for both. I don't think you can get both. Like I said, Hunter Henry, I don't think you really actually. Let me fix that statement. I don't think you want both. I think you need one. Tyquan Thornton showed his grit towards the end of the year. Devontae Parker has great experience. He will not be around next year. I don't see why they would. The
You
other
mean
thing about
2024?
right,
Parker?
2024. Actually, that kind of makes me. Let's take a little peek because 2024 is he's a free agent then. His dead cap hit is that real? Base salary 5.7. He has no dead cap hit this year. Interesting. He has a $6.2 million cap hit with no dead cap. Wow. Okay. Well, it'll be interesting to see if they keep him.
Yeah.
Gonna not cost us a dime to cut you? Maybe. You just had the choice to not pay you for 2023. Like there's a name. There's a name that could hit the wide receiver pool that you wouldn't expect. Yeah, Chark, I think Chark's valuation is closer to 13.5. Oh, no. That's because of his usage. He's at 9.5, excuse me, for 3 years. So injury history, it looks like, is a factor in that as well, which is interesting. I don't remember him being injured for all that long, but apparently he was. I think if you get Lazard and or Myers, probably and I don't know why you wouldn't choose Myers over Lazard at that point. But if that's the case, take them back, let Tyquan Thornton be there, draft somebody. Why not? Hunter
They're
Henry.
terrible at drafting wide receivers.
Yeah, it looks that way. Tyquan Thornton's really going to be a problem.
That's the first good receiver that they've drafted in the early rounds. Anyways,
You suck, you jackass.
They can, and the other thing about this is they love trading down.
yes,
They love trading
they
down
do.
and using the middle of this draft. And there are going to be some solid names in the second and third round for wide receivers. So fingers crossed for them. Last question for this is Mac Jones. Is the lack of passing in this offense, it kind of goes back to what you're talking about the play calling, but is the lack of passing in this offense the reason that this offense was so shaky last year? I think it is.
So first answer is yes. The weird thing was when Bailey Zappi stepped in, they were throwing it down the field, and I don't know where that came from.
Because you wouldn't expect it.
Exactly. But
This
we
to be
did
the last-
see.
Oh, the rookie quarterback, guard the first 10 yards off the LOS.
Right. We did see Jones start to throw it down the field a little bit more after that. So maybe that sparked something. Like we saw him start to throw it down the field to Parker, a little bit to Aguilar. So yes, short answer is yes. It's just that was some weird stuff that was happening there. But yeah, with Bill O'Brien there, it's going to be a lot more consistent. We're going to see a lot better play calling. And I think it really just kind of rounds the team out a little bit better if they can fill in the receiving options.
Makes sense. To the fantasy rankings. QB, we were 13th with Mac Jones. Where do you see him in 2023?
So
You think of breaking the top 10?
I was going to put him right around the top 10. The thing with Jones is, as a fantasy relevant QB, he's probably never going to be phenomenal. He's going to be, as we've said before, kind of a Kirk Cousins-esque type of guy.
Yep.
Especially because of the coaching staff, which I'm fine with, but just for word to the wise from a fantasy perspective. Wide
receivers. Yep. I would say if you're going to bring somebody back, Tyquan Thornton takes another step up, and it doesn't really matter where you get your third one because Mac Jones isn't throwing for 400 yards every week.
Right.
They were 14th, which I think is about average. You got really good production weekly from Myers, and then it was either Parker or Thornton or the occasional Kendrick Bourne who'd pop up out of nowhere, and will also still be on the roster next year. It looks like.
Right.
I think this could be. I would still say 12th to 14th. I
Yeah.
would put them as a potential mini step forward.
That's what I'm gonna say.
Tight end, they were 18th, and that's probably being nice because there was really only about 5 games that Hunter Henry and or Jonnu did a lot to benefit the team, and they were mostly in the latter part of the year. But I would put them in the same rank there too.
Yeah, I was gonna say they might.
Assuming that they even bring Hunter Henry back.
Right. So I was gonna say no better, maybe a step back, just because I don't know who if they are able to get a piece there.
Sounds fair. Running back, 11th for Ramondre Stevenson. As we crossed the less than 10 minutes to go sign, so we got to kind of hustle here. I would say right about there again.
Yeah, I was gonna keep it there. I was trying to remember how often he was hurt, but he kind of played through it. So yeah, that's fine.
Defense, I'll put 8th as a little step forward because we have last team we're going to talk about the Steelers. We got about 8 minutes for that. Steelers came into the season looking like they were going to rebuild, but it didn't stop Mike Tomlin from leading this team from the bottom of the AFC North. Trubisky lasted about as long as he should have. Kenny Pickett took over, and next thing you know, the Steelers are above 500, finishing 9-8. This is a team that likely expected a pick closer to the top half of this draft when they started the season. They already traded Chase Claypool and got a steal for him. Are you considering the Steelers as a candidate to move up again? I
I
would
don't
say
think
no.
they, yeah, I don't think they
Yeah,
need
I
to.
would say no. I think they're going to stay. And it would be fair to presume them. They're picking 16th, 17th. So take what you can get at that position.
Yeah.
First spot that would make sense for Pittsburgh is to crave that quarterback corner back position. Minka Fitzpatrick is a great safety, but the man coverage from the line of scrimmage killed Pittsburgh. They were 30th against opposing wide receivers. The linebacker group is not lacking by any means. Pittsburgh only gave up 7 rushing touchdowns all year. And can you trust the defense going into next year? I would say yes. I don't see any reason why you should not like this rush defense. This pass defense could use some help. We know that, but it really can't get any worse.
Yeah, and we saw them take a huge step up or forward when TJ Watt came back.
Yeah, that helps when you have a good pass rush.
Mm.
Let's make that straight. Real quick, we'll talk quarterback. Kenny Pickett. I didn't realize this. He only threw 1 interception from weeks 10 to 18.
Damn.
Right. He averaged a 59% completion, which isn't great. Also averaged 6.4 yards per catch, which is not horrible. Solid. The downside, he only threw for 5 touchdowns in those last 8 games.
Mm.
He only had 12 rush yards in the last 3 weeks of the season when he can scramble. And he never had a QBR above 81 all season. Where are you trusting Pickett? This will lead us right into our QB rankings next year. He was quarterback 23 on the year. I see some growth here, but again, I'm thinking like 16th.
That might be a little generous.
Well,
I don't know if I'm being conservative on. For some reason, he reminds me of Wilson, Zach Wilson. So I guess short answer is, I would be 16 is as high as I would go. I was gonna say more like 18, 19.
I'll put 18th.
I just didn't. He felt very game managery, and I think the coaching staff helped him out there. I just don't know how. I don't know what he has in the tank. I want to see more from him. I couldn't tell a lot from what we saw this year.
Yeah. Well, and again, you're going to have another set of wide receivers that are going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Deontay Johnson got better when Kenny Pickett got better.
Mm-hmm.
George Pickens was very up and down with Kenny Pickett, which is a fact of life. Pat Fryermuth had up and down games.
Right.
There's options with this team. The best person on the Pittsburgh Steelers team in their last 8 games was Najee Harris.
Yeah.
So I think there's room here. They just have to spread this offense. Also, real quick, not to side note, I believe it was Pat Fryermuth who said that the Steelers this year, because of the switch between quarterbacks and the issues that they had, they did not have hot routes built into the offense. That's a bit concerning.
Yeah.
You set up playing the huddle and it never changes. Wide receivers, 25th last year. I put 20th. I think that's about their ceiling. If we're not putting Pickett up much above 18th, I don't see how the wide receivers can go nuts.
Yeah.
And growth.
That's fair.
Tight end, 10th, Pat Fryermuth had a really good first half of the season, up and down the last half.
Yeah, he's a solid tight end. I would probably keep it right there.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking right at the 10th. Najee Harris, I have him as the RB8, and that's big up because he was like RB22 until week 7. Your opinion?
Yeah, the beginning of the year was pretty rocky. I mean, I don't think it gets much higher than 8th. His biggest, he gets a lot of usage, which is great for him. Yeah, I would keep it right around there.
Considering the missing pieces from the top half of this list that we didn't have for chunks of the year, Jonathan Taylor wouldn't be in the top 10 by stats because he missed 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
There's one other running back who was not in all year. I think Breece Hall would have cracked the top 10 had he continued to play at his pace. There were some pieces that just didn't. They should have been probably in the top 10, but they weren't. So I think 8th is good. I think 8th is good. That's about his ceiling. Because I think had they played, he'd be 10th or 11th. So defense, 10th ranked, which is fair. I think that's a fair number for them again. I don't see their defense changing. Again, if their quarterback or cornerback, they start restricting the yards to wide receivers, this could be a top 6 defense all in all. I mean, this 10th is based a lot on points allowed, but that's what I'm thinking.
Let's go 7th.
Okay, that's fair. Assuming they pick up this cornerback position and they get it all straightened down on the pass attack. I like the Steelers' growth this year. I think they should make the playoffs. They were knocking on the door with the setup they had this year.
Yeah.
So, about 2 minutes left. We are both going to take a stab at a crazy off-season prediction. Take a wild prediction. Any team, any position, make a wild prediction. You want to go first? You want to go second?
I'll go 2nd. I do not have anything prepared.
Absolutely wonderful. Derek Carr. Here's my wild prediction. Derek Carr. Oh, actually, you know what? That's a tough one. Okay, I'll say it. I'm losing faith in this the more I think about it, but I'll say it. Derek Carr will be a starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh, I was also contemplating something about the Bucks.
There's a lot of good ones here, man. There's a lot of good ones. Tony Pollard will not be a starting running back next year. There's another hot one that I also have zero faith in when I say.
Yeah. The Titans. I mean, we sort of already talked about this, but I think no. I was gonna say like they can't start Malik Willis next year, so they got to figure something out. I don't think Malik Willis is. I don't even know if he'll be on the team next year.
That hurts.
Yeah. I mean, that feels wild enough to me. I don't see like they shouldn't get rid of him. He's young. They got to build him up, but I think maybe they'll try to trade him away.
You're gonna trade. So the Titans trade Malik Willis
Along with some other package. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's gonna wrap up episode 39. I got about 20 seconds left. We will have our NFC focus show again. That will be posted premiere on Monday. Stay tuned to the channel. Make sure you check that out. Leave some comments on this. Let us know what your off-season crazy prediction is. Let us know what you have, because I like those. To everyone who stayed with us, we appreciate it. Next week, Super Bowl preview show will be later in the week. We'll have a Super Bowl review show. We'll update you more on other stuff. Taylor, anything else you want to say?
That's it.
All right. Listen to Bob Barker. You guys have a good rest of the week. We'll see you this weekend.
Bob Barker reminding you, help control the pet population. Have your pet spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.